her husband sold her to. The rival pack as a Christmas package, unaware the Alpha King had dreamed of her his entire life. This is the story of Isla, bald, broken, and believing she was worthless until the night everything changed. Until the Alpha King looked at her and whispered, "I've been waiting for you." Welcome back to the channel, my beautiful souls, and to all new viewers. Hit that subscribe button because you're about to fall in love with a story that will shatter your heart and rebuild it stronger. So grab your blankets, settle in, and prepare for a journey of revenge, redemption, and a love so fierce it could rewrite prophecy itself. Let's begin. The darkness inside the crate smelled like old wood and her own fear. Isla's head throbbed where Roderick had struck her, and the drug he'd forced down her throat made everything feel distant and floating, like she was drowning in honey. She could hear voices outside, muffled, excited. The scrape of boots on stone and the crackle of what? Must be a massive fire. "Last delivery of the night, Your Majesty," someone called out, their voice bright with anticipation. This one came all the way from the ash territory. Isla tried to move, but her limbs were lead, the drug. Always the drug when Roderick wanted her compliant. She'd learned not to fight it years ago. The crate lurched, and she heard the screech of nails being pried loose. Cold air rushed in, sharp and clean, nothing like the stale suffocation she'd been breathing. Torchlight stabbed her eyes. Strong hands gripped her arms and hauled her out. She stumbled, her legs refusing to hold her weight, and collapsed onto cold stone floor. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Of course they were laughing. She was always something to laugh at. "Oh, what in the goddess's name?" And a deep voice rumbled. Closer than the others. A voice that made something in Isla's chest flutter despite the drugs, despite the humiliation, despite everything. She forced her eyes open. The man standing above her was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver white hair that fell past his shoulders and eyes like winter storms. He wore black leather and furs, and power radiated from him like heat from a forge. This had to be the Alpha King, Lysander Frostborn, the man Roderick had sold her to like a Christmas ham. "But she's bald, sire," someone snickered from the crowd. "Completely hairless, not even eyebrows." "Means she's drugged," the king said, and his voice was cold enough to freeze blood. "Who did this?" Isla tried to speak, but her tongue was too thick. She managed to lift one shaking hand to her mouth in a gesture she hoped conveyed drinking. The king dropped to one knee beside her, and suddenly his scent surrounded her. Pine and snow and something wild that made her wolf stir. Except she didn't have a wolf. She'd never shifted. Never would. "Who drugged you?" he asked, his voice softer now, but no less intense. His eyes searched her face, and Isla had the strangest sensation that he was seeing something no one else could see. "Husband," she managed to whisper. "Roderick. Your husband drugged you and shipped you here in a crate. It wasn't a question." The king's jaw tightened, and the temperature in the great hall seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What's your name?" "Isla." Her vision was starting to tunnel. The drug was pulling her under again. "Isla," he repeated, and something in his expression shifted, softened. His hand came up slowly, telegraphing the movement, and his fingers brushed her cheek with impossible gentleness. "I've been waiting for you." That made no sense. Nothing made sense. The world tilted sideways, and Isla felt herself falling. The king caught her before she hit the ground, lifting her into his arms like she weighed nothing. She should protest. Should tell him to put her down, that she wasn't worth this kindness, that men who touched her always hurt her eventually. But the drug was too strong, and his arms were too warm, and for the first time in 7 years, Isla felt almost safe. "The competition is over," the king announced to the hall, his voice ringing with absolute authority. "Everyone out." "But sire, we haven't even—" "Out." The word cracked like a whip. Isla heard the scramble of feet, the murmur of confused voices, the slam of heavy doors, and then there was only silence, and the steady rhythm of the king's heartbeat beneath her ear. "It's you," he whispered so quietly she almost missed it. After all these years? It's really you. Isla wanted to ask what he meant, but the darkness was rising up to claim her. The last thing she felt was the brush of his lips against her forehead, reverent as a prayer. Then nothing. Isla woke to softness, warmth, the scent of lavender and something else, something that made her chest ache with a longing she didn't understand. She kept her eyes closed, taking inventory. Her head no longer throbbed. Her mouth didn't taste like copper and fear. The surface beneath her was a bed, soft as clouds. Nothing like the thin pallet Roderick had allowed her. This was wrong. This was a trick. She braced herself for the pain that always came when she let her guard down. "I know you're awake," that deep voice said from somewhere nearby. The king, Lysander. Your breathing changed. But you don't have to open your eyes if you're not ready. Take your time. Isla's eyes flew open despite herself. The room was enormous, all stone walls and soaring ceilings, warmed by a fire large enough to roast a deer. The bed she lay in could have fit 6 people comfortably, piled with furs and pillows. Through a nearby window, she could see snow falling in the moonlight. The king sat in a chair beside the bed, his massive frame somehow making the furniture look delicate. He wasn't looking at her, giving her space to observe him. He'd removed the furs and wore only a simple black shirt that did nothing to hide the muscles beneath. His silver hair was pulled back, revealing the strong lines of his jaw and the slight point of his ears. He was too beautiful. It hurt to look at him. "Where am I?" Isla's voice came out as a rasp. "My chambers," he said, still not looking at her. "You're safe here. I give you my word. Your chambers." She tried to sit up and her body protested. How long had she been unconscious? Why? "Because I'm not letting you out of my sight until I know you're healed." Now he did look at her, and the intensity in those storm-gray eyes made her breath catch. "A healer came while you slept. She said you have 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and more bruises than she could count, all in various stages of healing." Shame burned through Isla. Of course he could see what Roderick had done. Everyone always did, even when they pretended not to notice. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Sorry?" The word came out sharp. "You're apologizing to me?" I'm not worth the trouble." Roderick said he sent a note explaining. "I'm defective. I can't shift. I can't bear children. I'm just—" "Stop!" The king rose from his chair and Isla flinched back instinctively. He froze, his expression crumpling. "I'm not going to hurt you, Isla. I swear on my life I will never hurt you." "Everyone hurts me," she said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "It's what I'm for." "No." He moved slowly, carefully, lowering himself to sit on the edge of the bed. Still too close, but he kept his hands in his lap, visible and non-threatening. "That's what they told you." "It's a lie. You don't know me. I've dreamed of you since I was a child." The words hung in the air between them, impossible and heavy. "Every night for 23 years I've seen your face. Amber eyes, no hair, a scent like smoke and roses. I've been holding the Christmas gathering for 15 years, hoping you'd appear. And tonight, you fell out of a crate at my feet." Isla stared at him. He was insane, had to be. Powerful men didn't dream of bald, broken women. They dreamed of beauties with long hair and intact souls. "I know you don't believe me," Lysander continued. "I wouldn't either in your position. But I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove it. Stay here. Let me care for you. Let me show you what you deserve." "And what do I deserve?" The question came out bitter. "Everything," he said simply. "Gentleness, patience, love. A life where you're cherished instead of broken." Love. The word was foreign on his tongue, speaking about her. Isla felt tears prick her eyes and fought them back viciously. She didn't cry. Crying only made Roderick angrier. "I need you to understand something," Lysander said, his voice dropping lower. "My wolf recognized you the moment I saw you. You're my mate, Isla, my true mate. The bond is already forming, whether you feel it yet or not. I know this is overwhelming. I know you've been hurt, but I need you to know that you're safe here. No one will touch you without your permission. Not even me." "Why?" The word burst out of her. "Why would you want me? I'm nothing. You're everything, he interrupted. And I'm going to spend every day proving that to you until you believe it. He stood then, moving back toward the chair, putting distance between them. There's food on the table when you're hungry. The bathing chamber is through that door. Everything you need is here. I'll sleep in the chair tonight. You don't have to— Yes, I do. His smile was crooked, almost self-deprecating. My wolf won't let me leave you unprotected. And I don't trust myself not to post guards outside the door, which would probably terrify you. So I'll stay here where you can see me, where you know you're safe. Isla looked at this powerful king, this beautiful monster of a man, and saw something she'd never expected. Sincerity. I don't understand you, she whispered. You will, Lysander promised. We have time, Isla. All the time in the world. He settled into the chair, looking far too large for it, and turned his gaze to the fire. Giving her privacy, giving her space, giving her something she'd never had before. A choice. Isla pulled the furs up to her chin and watched him. This king who claimed to have dreamed of her, and felt something dangerous unfurl in her chest. Hope. A week passed like a dream Isla was afraid to wake from. Lysander courted her with a patience that bewildered her. He slept in the chair those first few nights, always there when she woke gasping from nightmares. During the day, he worked at his desk while she healed. His presence steady and undemanding. He never crowded her, never demanded, never took. On the fourth day, when her ribs had healed enough to walk without pain, he offered to show her the gardens. The winter roses are blooming, he said, extending his arm like she was a lady worth courting, if you'd like to see them. Isla stared at his offered arm, uncertain. When had anyone treated her like someone worth asking? But something in his patient expression made her brave. She slipped her hand into the crook of his elbow. The garden stole her breath. Even buried in snow, they thrived with impossible beauty. Crimson roses climbed frost-covered trellises, and ice sculptures caught the weak sunlight, throwing rainbows across crystal paths. It's beautiful, she whispered. It pales in comparison to you, Lysander said softly. She looked at him sharply, expecting mockery, but found only sincerity. They sat on a bench beneath a rose arbor, and he told her about the dreams. How he'd seen her since he was 7 years old. How he'd searched every Christmas for 15 years, praying she would appear. You're not some random woman your husband sold, he said, his fingers curling gently around hers. You're my mate, my equal, the other half of my soul. I don't know how to let someone love me, Isla admitted, tears burning her eyes. Then let me teach you, one day at a time. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. You're not broken, Isla, you're scarred. And scars prove you survived. He told her about the prophecy then. An ancient foretelling passed through his bloodline about a Luna, born concealed, hairless, unable to shift, appearing broken to the world. But when loved unconditionally, she would reveal her true form. Power beyond measure, a wolf unlike any other. That's not me, Isla said quickly. I'm just broken. Have you ever been loved unconditionally before? His question hung in the air between them, and they both knew the answer. Let me love you and we'll see what happens. Something inside her chest shifted, ice beginning to thaw. Okay. His smile was warm enough to chase away the winter cold. He stood and offered his hand again. Come, let me show you the rest of the gardens. They walked together through snow-covered paths, and Lysander pointed out his favorite places, the fountain that sang in summer, the maze where he'd hidden as a boy, the ancient oak where his parents had carved their names. With each story, Isla felt herself relaxing, the knots of tension in her shoulders slowly unwinding. When they returned to the rose arbor, the sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. Lysander guided her back to the bench, but this time he sat closer, their shoulders almost touching. I don't understand what you want from me, Isla said softly, giving voice to the fear that had been growing all day. I've given you nothing. I can't shift. I can't give you heirs. Why waste your time? Lysander turned to face her fully, and his expression was fierce. May I touch you? Her heart hammered. Yes. His hands came up to frame her face with devastating gentleness. You are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Your strength that kept you alive. Your courage in letting me close. That's what I see, not what you lack, but what you are. His thumbs brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I don't need you to shift or bear children. I need you to exist, to breathe, to learn that you deserve to take up space in this world. I don't know how to believe you. Then let me prove it. He leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to refuse. May I kiss you? Roderick had never asked. He'd taken. Always taken. But this was different. This was a choice. Yes, she whispered. Lysander's lips met hers with a softness that shattered something inside her chest. He kissed her like she was precious, his mouth moving against hers slowly, reverently, asking nothing and demanding nothing. The world narrowed to just this, his warmth, his gentleness, the way he held her like she might break, but also like she was the most valuable thing he'd ever touched. When he pulled back, she was shaking. Not enough, she breathed. Heat flared in his eyes, but he remained controlled. We have time. He kissed her again, and this time Isla kissed him back, tentative but present. His hand cradled the back of her head, and shame flooded her. She had no hair for him to touch, nothing but smooth skin. She tried to pull away, but he held her gently in place. Don't hide from me, he murmured against her lips. My head, it's ugly. Perfect. He kissed her forehead, her temples, the crown of her head, each touch a benediction. You're perfect exactly as you are. They stayed like that in the garden as twilight deepened around them, trading soft kisses beneath the winter roses, his arms wrapped around her, pulling her close against the cold. And Isla let herself be held, let herself believe, just for this moment, that maybe she deserved this tenderness. When the first stars appeared overhead, Lysander finally pulled back, his breathing ragged. We should go inside. You'll catch cold. I don't want this to end, she admitted quietly. It won't. He stood and helped her to her feet, then surprised her by sweeping her into his arms. This is just the beginning. He carried her back through the palace, and Isla buried her face against his neck, breathing in his scent of pine and snow. When they reached his chambers, he set her down gently and led her to the fire. The days that followed taught Isla what gentleness felt like. Lysander introduced her to his sister Lyra, who pulled her into warm embraces and taught her about pack politics over tea. He brought her breakfast when nightmares left her exhausted. He read to her by the fire in the evenings, his deep voice washing over her like a balm. And each night, after she'd fallen asleep reading or embroidering, he would carry her to bed, tuck her in with careful tenderness, and settle into the chair beside her. Always watching, always protecting, never demanding more than she was ready to give. 2 weeks after their first kiss in the garden, Isla woke in the middle of the night to find Lysander still in his chair, his head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, clearly exhausted but refusing to leave his post. Lysander, she whispered. His eyes opened immediately. What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? No, She took a breath, gathering her courage. Stay with me. In the bed, please. He went very still. Isla, not for that. Just stay close. I don't want you sleeping in that chair anymore. Something in his expression softened. Are you sure? She nodded and pulled back the furs in invitation. He moved slowly, carefully, sliding into the bed beside her. When he opened his arms, she went into them without hesitation, letting him pull her against his chest. His heart thundered beneath her ear, and she could feel his desire. But he made no move beyond holding her safe. Thank you, she whispered into the darkness, for making me feel human again. You were always human, Isla. Always worthy. Always enough. I'm just helping you remember. She fell asleep in his arms, and for the first time in 7 years, she didn't dream of pain. Isla woke to a sensation she'd never felt before, a tingling along her scalp, like tiny sparks of electricity dancing across her skin. She reached up groggily to scratch at it and froze. There was something on her head, something that hadn't been there before. She sat bolt upright, her heart hammering. Lysander was already awake, propped on one elbow beside her, and the expression on his face was one of wonder. What? She demanded. What is it? Look. He held up a small mirror from the bedside table. Isla took it with shaking hands and raised it to her face. For a moment, she couldn't process what she was seeing. Then her brain caught up with her eyes and she gasped. There, at her crown, was a single strand of hair. Wine dark and curling slightly, it gleamed in the morning light like spun silk. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "The prophecy," Lysander breathed. "It's beginning." Isla touched the hair with trembling fingers. It was real, solid, hers. After 25 years of nothing, she was growing hair. "I don't understand," she said. "How?" Lysander sat up beside her, and his hand came to rest on her knee. The prophecy spoke of a Luna born concealed, who would reveal her true form when loved unconditionally. "Last night," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Last night, you let yourself be vulnerable with me. You let yourself trust. Maybe that was enough to break the seal." "Seal? What seal?" "I don't know yet, but I intend to find out." He cupped her face, tilting it toward him. "How do you feel?" Isla took inventory. The tingling had spread, dancing across her entire scalp now. But beyond that, there was something else. A stirring deep inside her chest, like something long dormant was beginning to wake. "Strange," she admitted. "Like something's changing." "Inside me." "Your wolf," Lysander said, his eyes lighting with excitement. "She's waking up." "I don't have a wolf." "Yes, you do. She's just been sleeping, waiting for you to be ready." Over the next 3 days, Isla's transformation accelerated. Hair sprouted across her scalp in a cascade of wine-dark curls, thick and lustrous. Her eyebrows grew in, elegant arches that framed her amber eyes. Even her eyelashes appeared, long and curling. She spent hours in front of the mirror, touching her hair in disbelief, running her fingers through the silky strands. Lysander watched her with poorly concealed delight, looking like he wanted to touch but restraining himself until she gave permission. "You can touch it," she finally said on the 3rd evening. "If you want." He crossed to her immediately, his hands sinking into her hair with a reverence that made her shiver. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "Just like I saw in my dreams." "What else did you see?" she asked. "In the dreams?" His fingers stilled in her hair. "Your wolf, white with flames along her spine. The most magnificent creature I've ever seen." "I still can't shift," Isla said, disappointment heavy in her chest. "I've tried." "Nothing happens. Give it time. The seal is breaking, but it's not broken yet. Whatever magic concealed you, it was powerful. It won't release all at once." That night, Isla woke from a dream of running through snow-covered forests on 4 legs. The tingling had spread from her scalp to her entire body, and there was a voice in her head, faint, distant, but undeniably there. "Sister," it whispered. "I'm here. I've always been here." Isla sat up carefully, not wanting to wake Lysander. But his eyes opened immediately, alert and watchful. "What's wrong?" "I heard her," Isla breathed. "My wolf, she spoke to me." Lysander was out of bed in an instant. "What did she say?" "That she's here. That she's always been here." Isla pressed a hand to her chest. "Lysander, I think I can shift. I think I'm ready. Now?" He glanced at the window, where the full moon hung fat and silver in the sky. "The moon is full. It will make it easier." They dressed quickly and made their way to the gardens, to a wide clearing surrounded by pine trees. Snow crunched beneath their feet, and Isla's breath misted in the cold air. "What do I do?" she asked. "Listen to her. Let her guide you." Lysander stepped back, giving her space. "I'll be right here." Isla closed her eyes and reached inward, searching for that voice she'd heard. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, "Let go," her wolf whispered. "Stop hiding. Stop being small. Let me out." The shift hit her like lightning. Pain exploded through her body as bones cracked and reformed, as muscles tore and rewove themselves. She heard Lysander cry out, heard him take a step toward her. But the pain was already fading, replaced by a sensation of absolute rightness. She opened eyes that now saw in shades of silver and blue, that caught the heat signatures of small creatures in the underbrush. She looked down at paws. No, not paws. Her paws. White as fresh snow with hints of red flickering along the fur like dying embers. "Isla," Lysander breathed. She turned to look at him and saw wonder written across his face. He dropped to his knees in the snow, and she padded over to him, instinct guiding her movements. "You're magnificent," he whispered, his hands coming up to sink into her fur. "Even more beautiful than I dreamed." Isla, no, Scarlet, her wolf's name was Scarlet, leaned into his touch. She was larger than she'd expected, nearly as tall as Lysander on his knees. And as she moved, she saw it. Flames dancing along her spine, red as blood, hot as fury. Power hummed through her veins. Magic she'd never known she possessed. She threw back her head and howled, and the sound rang through the mountains like a declaration. "I am here. I am alive. I am free." Lysander shifted beside her, and suddenly a massive silver wolf stood in his place. He was enormous, easily twice her size, with eyes that glowed like moonlight. He pressed his muzzle against hers in a gesture of affection, and Scarlet felt the mate bond snap into place with almost physical force. "Mine!" her wolf purred. "Ours," his wolf responded. They ran through the gardens together, two wolves dancing in the moonlight, learning each other's movements and reveling in their newfound connection. And when they finally shifted back to human form, Lysander pulled Isla into his arms and kissed her with a desperation that made her toes curl. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I've loved you since I was 7 years old, and I'll love you until the stars burn out." Isla looked up at this man who had saved her, who had shown her that love didn't have to hurt, and felt the last of her walls crumble. "I love you too," she whispered. And in that moment, surrounded by snow and moonlight and the warmth of his embrace, Isla finally believed she deserved to be happy. But in the shadows at the edge of the gardens, a figure watched. Roderick Ashe had come to reclaim his property, and he would burn the world to do it. The attack came 3 nights later, swift and brutal. Isla woke to the sound of shattering glass and Lysander's roar of fury. Before she could react, he'd shifted and thrown himself at the window where a massive brown wolf was climbing through, fangs bared. "Roderick." "Run!" Lysander's voice echoed in her mind through their newly formed bond. "Get to Lyra!" But Isla's wolf had other ideas. Scarlet surged forward, protective and fierce. And suddenly Isla was standing on 4 legs, flames dancing along her spine as she snarled at her former husband. The fight was vicious but short. Roderick was no match for an alpha king and his mate. Lysander was already planning on how to visit him and kill him, mercilessly for what he has done to his mate, but he has entered a lion den by himself. When Lysander's jaws closed around his throat, ending him, Isla felt nothing. No grief, no guilt. Only relief that the monster who'd tormented her for 7 years would never hurt anyone again. But as Roderick's body shifted back to human form and death, something fell from his pocket. A letter, old and water-stained, sealed with wax that bore a symbol Isla had never seen before, a crescent moon wrapped in flames. Lysander shifted back and picked it up carefully. His expression darkened as he read. "Isla," he said quietly, "we need to talk." They gathered in his study, Isla, Lysander, and Lyra, who'd arrived with palace guards after hearing the commotion. The letter lay on the desk between them like an accusation. "The carvers didn't just find you in the woods," Lysander said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "They were paid to take you, to hide you, to make sure you never discovered who you really are." Isla's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Lyra leaned forward, her face pale. "That symbol on the seal. It's the mark of the Moonfire pack. They were one of the most powerful packs in history, known for producing lunas with extraordinary abilities. But 25 years ago, they were wiped out in a single night. Massacred," Lysander continued grimly. "Every man, woman, and child slaughtered by the Shadow Fang pack, who wanted their territory and feared their power. The Moonfire Alpha and his mate had a daughter, barely a month old. She was never found. Everyone assumed she'd died in the fire that consumed their compound." Isla's hands trembled. "Me? You!" Lysander moved to her side, pulling her against him. "Your parents didn't abandon you, Isla. They died protecting you. And someone, a survivor perhaps, or a loyal pack member, managed to get you out. They concealed your power with a sealing spell, one that would only break when you were loved. unconditionally and safe enough to claim your true heritage. The carvers, Isla whispered, pieces falling into place. They were supposed to keep me hidden. But when I didn't shift, when I became a liability, they sold you off, Lyra finished, anger sharp in her voice. To Roderick, who clearly knew more than he let on. This letter is from someone in the Shadow Fang pack, offering him gold if he kept you weak and powerless. If you'd never discovered what you were. Isla looked down at her hands, now fully human again, and felt rage building inside her. Her parents had been murdered. She'd been stolen, concealed, sold like livestock, all to prevent her from becoming what she was meant to be. The Shadow Fang pack, she said, her voice cold as winter ice. Where are they? Lysander's smile was savage. North of here. 3 days' journey. But Isla, they killed my parents. They took everything from me. She met his eyes, and he saw Scarlet looking back at him, all fire and fury. I want revenge. Then we'll get it. He cupped her face, his thumb stroking her cheek. Together. You're not alone anymore, Isla. You have me. You have this pack, and we will make them pay for what they've done. The war party rode out at dawn. Lysander, Isla, Lyra, and 50 of the Frostborn pack's finest warriors. They traveled fast and silent through snow-covered forests. And with each mile, Isla felt her power growing stronger. Her wolf was fully awake now, ancient and powerful. Remembering things Isla's human mind had forgotten, she remembered her mother's lullabies, her father's laughter, the warmth of the pack that had loved her in those first precious weeks of life. And she remembered the screams when the Shadowfangs came. When they reached the Shadowfang territory on the 3rd day, Isla didn't wait for strategy or planning. Scarlet surged forward with a howl that shook the mountains, and the flames along her spine blazed bright enough to turn night into day. The Shadowfang Alpha, a grizzled wolf named Maddox, shifted and snarled when he saw them approaching. The Frostborn King, what business do you have here? Justice, Lysander growled, his silver wolf enormous and terrifying. 25 years ago, your pack slaughtered the Moonfires, murdered innocents, stole territory that wasn't yours. Ancient history, Maddox spat. What's it to you? Isla stepped forward and her transformation was breathtaking. Her white wolf with red flames was even larger than before, power radiating from her like heat from the sun. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of prophecy. I am Isla Moonfire, daughter of Alpha Caden and Luna Sarah, last of my bloodline, and I have come to claim what's mine. The battle was brutal. The Shadowfangs fought with desperation, but they were no match for Isla's power combined with Lysander's strength. Scarlet moved through their ranks like wildfire, her flames burning away, the darkness that had plagued this territory for 25 years. When Maddox finally fell, broken and bleeding, Isla stood over him in her human form, wine-colored hair whipping in the wind. My parents showed you mercy once, she said coldly. They let you live on the borders of their territory, gave you hunting rights, treated you with respect, and you repaid them with slaughter. We were strong, Maddox rasped. We took what we deserved. You took nothing. Isla's eyes blazed. You're weak. You've always been weak. That's why you feared us. That's why you struck in the night like cowards. She looked at Lysander, who stood beside her, blood-spattered and magnificent. What's the sentence for genocide? Death, he said simply. By the old laws and the new. Isla nodded. She could have killed Maddox herself, could have let Scarlet tear him apart. But she was done letting rage control her. She was done being the broken thing that others had made her. You're not worth my claws, she said. Lysander. The Frostborn King ended it quickly, mercifully. More mercy than the Shadowfangs had shown the Moonfires. As the sun rose over the reclaimed territory, Isla stood in the ruins of what had once been her parents' compound. The earth still remembered them, she realized. Still held echoes of their love and their sacrifice. Are you all right? Lysander asked softly, coming to stand beside her. I am now. She leaned into him, letting his warmth chase away the last of the cold. They died protecting me, making sure I'd survive. And I did. I survived and I became exactly what they hoped I'd be. A queen, Lyra said, joining them with a soft smile. The prophecy speaks of the Once-in-a-Millennium Wolf restoring balance. That's what you've done today. Isla, you've brought justice to your parents and freed this territory from darkness. Isla looked at the land around her, her ancestral home, finally reclaimed. Then she looked at Lysander, at the man who'd loved her when she'd been nothing, who'd helped her become everything. "Let's go home," she said. "Where's home?" he asked, though his smile said he already knew. "Wherever you are." She rose on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet. "You saved me, Lysander. Not just from Roderick, but from believing I was worthless. You showed me who I really am." "No." He pulled her close, burying his face in her wine-dark curls. "You saved yourself. I just loved you while you did it." They returned to the Frostborn Palace as winter gave way to spring. Isla took her place as Luna Queen, beloved by the pack that had welcomed her. The Moonfire territory was absorbed into Lysander's lands, restored and thriving once more. And on the anniversary of her first shift, Isla stood before the pack and told her story. Not to shame herself, but to give hope to others who felt broken. To show them that scars could heal, that love could transform. That prophecy wasn't just about power. It was about becoming who you were always meant to be. She was Isla Moonfire, Frostborn, survivor, queen, the once-in-a-millennium wolf. And she bowed to no one,